We're reading from Kabbalah for the student, page 462. You can ask questions live on Kab TV. Selected questions will be aired. So, item 19, and we will be starting in the middle. We find in the Zohar that the affliction in people's bodies are branches of the upper Sitra Achra. Hence, let us take the animate level and learn from that. We found that the spouting that occurs in its body through attainments of pleasure and what proliferates its life. For this reason, Providence has imprinted in the little ones that every place they rest their eyes on gives them pleasure and contentment, even the most trifling things. This is so because the level of the small must proliferate sufficiently to grow and sprout, and this is why their pleasure is copious. Thus, you find that the light of pleasure is the progenitor of life.
Well, this is something we learn throughout, actually, from in many ways, from many places, that our whole history we've advanced by a force that forced us to always grow our vessels, our desires. The desires that evolved by fulfillments. And thus, from moment to moment, from day to day, humanity has evolved for dozens of thousands of years. That's how we've been developing. Until we reach a point where we are already satiated. We're already at the end of developing by pleasure. We emerged of the state where we are like babies, and now we're entering a time and a period where the development can happen not just by fulfillments, meaning become fulfilled and then become empty, then become fulfilled again and empty again. That's how we've advanced so far. If we build some new society, there was a revolution, a technological development, social revolution, educational change, and so on. From generation to generation, we discovered that this is not fulfilling us, and that is not satisfying us, and so on and so forth. So, it's like with babies. Just like the higher providence urges the baby to try to enjoy this and this and that, and this is how a baby deals with his little things. Humanity is actually evolving in the same way, chasing all kinds of fulfillments, battling different things, fighting about different things, and so on. It's really just like babies. And only now we're reaching a point where we begin to evolve not just by desire and fulfillment. Rather, we feel that there are no more lacks and no more fulfillments, no more desires. We're getting despaired. This is why we escape towards drugs, and there's a great depression, and it kind of descends on the world, because we're starting a new phase of development, not by being urged by nature towards different goals. It's like a dog wandering the street and sniffing for something to chew on. So we're emerging out of that period of time, and you see that period of time is very long, several thousands of years. And now we're entering the next phase, where the development is not by a deficit and a fulfillment, rather by the intention. That's the next phase, and that's why we now need the light that reforms and the wisdom of Kabbalah. Yes?
The mechanics of the development of the desire in our world is very clear and evident, and we have thousands of years of experience. What is the innovation that the wisdom of Kabbalah gives us in using this desire?
What does the wisdom of Kabbalah say about using the desire? It brings us the intention. We don't need anything else. The Creator created a will to receive. By emptying it and shining on it with different lights, it awakens the desire to receive different fulfillments. So it creates new voids in the will to receive, fulfills them, and then empties them. It's called the light shakes up the vessels. In other words, the light comes in and out, and by that the will to receive becomes more sophisticated, bigger, more knowledgeable. It already makes discernments and different connections between different states, so it becomes very much internally complex. And that is just the light and the kli. Nothing else is needed. The desire is receiving for itself, and it always chases fulfillment, trying to calm itself down and fill itself up. That was our tendency of development throughout the levels of inanimate, vegetative, and animate. Now begins the degree of the speaking. That speaking degree is something completely different. It does not depend on still vegetative and animate. It is the intention. Why do I have the still vegetative and animate? Why do I live? This is why there is a question of what is the point in life. This is how one comes to Kabbalah, like it is said in the introduction to Talmud Sefirot. It's a completely different direction. I don't depend on all that I evolved by before was before. Now there is something ahead of me which I don't know and I don't recognize. My crisis now is a crisis of development, of the formula of my development, that it doesn't work anymore. Light and kli, desire and fulfillment can no longer work for me. That's it. I've finished, exhausted this approach, this formula. I exhausted it. What do I do now? I don't know. Now I see that there's a fulfillment, there's a deficit, but I don't find the connection between them. Before that, it was the more I want, the more I enjoy. The more I crave, the more I get fulfilled. Now, the more I want, and I want to grab the fulfillment, it perhaps enters me for a moment, and that's it, and it's done, and it's over. And I don't even want to chase it anymore, but I'm still feeling a deficit. You understand the despair? That's the problem. And humanity starts feeling it. We're still not feeling it in the fullest extent, but it will emerge as and manifest as problems and crises and wars, because when a person feels that inner emptiness, he's willing to do anything just to feel some fulfillment, even for a moment. And we are in that transition now.
So, what actually happened here? There was once a fulfillment.
The will to receive, which is egoistic, has finished its development on the degree of still vegetative and animate. Now its growth must be on the speaking degree. The speaking degree means similar to the Creator. So that's a completely different form. Now it must become similar. Becoming similar meaning working in bestowal. Opposite to how it was before. This action is what's unclear. The force for how to do it is unclear. The mind, the desire, the environment for this, there's nothing for humanity. There's the wisdom of Kabbalah until, well, when it's revealed. But in the meantime, as we disseminate the wisdom of Kabbalah, we wish to hasten the development, to bring the remedy before the blow, before the disease, because no one will know what and how to do anything in life. No one. Not politicians, sociologists, psychologists, scientists of all kinds. No one. They will all just stand still. We just have to somehow keep going. Meaning people will agree with all kinds of forms of life. Just, keep it quiet. Just, okay, well, let's keep going. We're alive. It's okay. People will relate to life in a way that is like, just, let's hope it doesn't get worse. Everyone will be like that because the helplessness of having no attraction forward. When I look at people who are touring the world these days, having trips, because the world becomes smaller, more globalized in culture and so on, look how much it induces correction. We think that people are just having pleasure from touring the world. What do you think it happens? Because of the mixture. What happens internally is the integration, and that's for the purpose of correction. Soon, it'll be over, and then you'll see that all of that international tourism, which today is a big business, you'll suddenly see that, puck, no one wants to go anywhere. There's no point. What will they do? It's like that in any realm. Yes.
So where's the breakthrough here?
Where is the breakthrough? I don't know. It's only in disseminating the wisdom of Kabbalah. If we organize our powerful central kli from which more and more groups and circles will be built, and surrounding organizations, and it will expand and spread as long as the authentic sources, the authentic books are in their hands. This is the one thing we mustn't forgo, and we mustn't agree with anything in addition to this. Only the sources. Baal Sulam and Rabash, that's that. All the rest, they can somehow do what they're according to their nature and characteristics. If that's the case, then we are building within this disparate humanity, this unaware humanity, we're building them towards this new degree that no one knows about, no one understands, and we are the only ones who have a clear understanding of it and a relative experience of what to do. Until then, until they get finally despaired, until they sense and discover that that old tendency of development, that old formula of development has ended, and there needs to be a new formula which they don't know about. And that formula is that You have to have a screen, a masach, between the will to receive and the pleasure. Before that, the light was together with the pleasure, just like on the degrees of still, vegetative, and animate. They were connected. Now there has to be a masach between them, and that masach can only come through the light that reforms. The light that reforms comes only by studying the wisdom of Kabbalah. The study has to happen only in the group. And then all that we do is what humanity will start using.
The first point of contact between Kabbalah and a person who is in such a despaired desire, how does it penetrate him? What does it tell him? What does it bring him?
I didn't understand.
I'm asking about the first point of contact in between the state in which humanity is in now and the wisdom of Kabbalah. How does it penetrate a person? What does it give him? What is the edge of thread that it brings him in order for them to have a point of connection?
On the one hand, we're already seeing that there is a connection. It is said you should be a holy nation and so on, and that's what we're doing, creating through our dissemination inside Israel. And on the other hand, they shall all the nations shall stream to me, it is said, from the greatest to the littlest, and this is what we're seeing through our connection all over the world. So we're becoming like one humanity, one model of the corrected Babylon, so to speak. So it's already being done, only as a mini model. It's already there. We will strengthen more and more and expand, and perhaps in one of the days we'll start organizing as like a virtual country that contains all the services and organizations by itself, and the people living in it are living that way above boundaries, and they have their own constitution, which is the spiritual one of equivalence of form. That's the foundation. It's already there, but it's not yet in the required intensity and quality and quantity, so that it requires us to organize ourselves. But it's already there. You can't say it's not there. And we all have one source, the same books, the same knowledge and direction, and that's it. Everything. Even more than that, education, I hope, will soon be one. Culture is obviously one. Songs, books, and so on. Meaning you're already talking about some reality of a spiritual nation that arises from within all nations. That there begins to be a new reality here. New society. This is similar to, say, Abraham, who took people from from Babylon, from all that medley of languages and so on. He took people who later came together that way. So it's the same, happening the same way. Only now people are not taken out. It's just people are getting more and more connected. Perhaps it won't happen like a dramatic scenario with some blows and wars. No. Why can't it continue the way it continues now, the way it happens now, only at a greater pace? It depends on us. You don't need anything to happen. The world can continue the way it is now, only faster and faster, more and more people should awaken and join us. And then we have to develop more and more ways of studying and joining and culture and so on. Whatever life demands, whatever life requires. Just like our stimulator system, for instance, and our tendency to be frequently connected once a month, every month, through some mega convention or international convention, something like that. It's already being done. It's already happening. We're seeing that these things ripen. Whether we like it or not, this is the nature of things to happen that way. Let's continue.
So we are on page 462. However,
I just wanted to still draw this, illustrate this, that we have developed egoistically. Let's divide it into two parts. So for thousands of years we've developed egoistically. That is, a kli and a light working on it. Pleasure. And that's the deficit. And this is how we existed, and this was advancing us throughout the degrees of still, vegetative, and animate. That's it. And now we're in a transition between the animate to the speaking degree. Adam. Man. The speaking degree. And this degree is very unique because it does not belong to our body. What is the difference between man and an animal? If you ask a doctor, they'll tell you that there's no, is there a big difference between a cow and a fish? The difference is bigger than between a cow and a man, right? Or a monkey and a pig and a human. It's the same thing. You have all kinds of insects and fish and birds that if you look at them, you'll see many changes. And we are not that different. Within the animate degree that we belong to in our bodies, there are much greater changes, differences. But the speaking degree is irrelevant, is detached from our bodies. That's why the wisdom of Kabbalah is given that way. You cannot discover it naturally because you belong to the animate degree. So this is a completely different tendency, direction. This is where you have a kli, a masach, and a light. And that masach is that you, on the one hand, reject using your desire directly. You reject the pleasure that comes to you directly, and on top of rejecting both the desire and the pleasure, you don't want to use both, you then connect them in the middle line. This is something not simple at all. It's not something that is, obvious. And this is why we need to disseminate the wisdom of Kabbalah. Adam, it means that structure, that connection between the light and the desire. Yes.
What I understand from the explanation is that the connection between humanity, which is now in the state of still vegetative, animate, and exhausted itself on the living degree, and it's headed towards the speaking degree, we could say that we're talking about us here. And I understand that there are such events that create, the stimulator, that create a kind of a wave, and actually more and more people join.
Yes.
And eventually all of humanity.
Right.
Now, the question is, how can a particular person increase this general ongoing process?
By taking part, of course. There's a one individual cannot do anything. But taking part in our studies, activities, events, even if he lives far away from everyone, if he takes part to some extent, that's it. Now, from this diagram, you can perhaps understand what is the issue of the sin of the tree of knowledge. The sin of the tree of knowledge refers exactly to the disclosure of this deficit. That's the void, the vacant space that's been revealed. Before that, there's no shame. It is written, and they shall not be ashamed. Because you're like a beast here, you're an animal, there's no problem. Why? Because you don't feel that you're independent. Subconsciously, you're immersed in the Creator. You're built that way. And like animals, you don't need any clothing, any dressing. Here you need clothing, which means returning light. The shame brings you to returning light. The shame is with respect to not being Adam, that is similar to the Creator. That's what we were talking about before regarding Amikam's question. What was the shame revealed upon in Ein Sof?
And so comes Kabbalah and tells a person this deficiency revealed to you is a new level, a new degree, and how should you use it?
Love thy friend as thyself. Very simple. You have the whole world spread before you in order to realize your life. That's it.
I don't understand. I feel a certain void now. You come and say, love another as thyself. How does it fulfill this void? What does it have to do with one another?
The vacant space that appears is the mismatch with the Creator, the inequivalence, and you complete that space with love of others, thereby becoming similar to the Creator. Because you never work directly towards the Creator. In other words, you're always dealing with correcting the vessels. When you have to correct your Kli, are you doing anything towards the Creator? No. You're preparing the Kli for Him to fulfill. You can say, wait a minute, I don't understand now. He needs to fulfill my Kli, I need to fulfill him. Right? You understand or not? So, in adhesion, they become one and the same. Because the Creator is revealed in me. There is no Creator without my vessel. In my vessel appears a vacant space called Creator that I fulfill. This is called the revelation of the Creator to His creatures. Well, okay, let's continue.
So, we're on page 462, However, this law applies only in pleasures that come to the level as a whole. But in a pleasure of separation, when the pleasure is concentrated and received only by a separated part of the level of the animal, we find the opposite rule. If there is a defective place in its flesh, which demands scratching and rubbing, the act of scratching carries its reward with it. As one feels great pleasure pursuing it. However, that pleasure is sudden, With a drop of the potion of death, if one does not govern one's desire and pays the haunting demand, the payment will increase the debt. In other words, according to the pleasure from scratching, so will the affliction increase and the pleasure will turn to pain. When it begins to heal again, a new demand for scratching appears, and at a greater extent than before. And if one still cannot govern one's desire and pays to saturate the demand, the affliction will grow as well. Finally, it brings it a bitter drop, entirely poisoning the blood in that animal. You find that it died by receiving pleasure, since it is a pleasure of separation, received only by a separated part of the level. Hence, death operates in the level in the opposite manner from the pleasure administered to the entire level. Here we see before us the form of the upper Sitra Achra from head to toe. Her head is the will to receive for herself alone, and to not bestow outside of herself, as is the property of the demand and the affliction and the afflicted flesh with respect to the entire animal. The body of the Sitra Achra is a certain form of demand that is not going to be paid. The repayment one makes increases the debt and the affliction even more, as with the example of receiving pleasure by scratching. The toe of the Sitra Achra is the drop of the portion of death, which robs it and separates it from the last spark of life it had left. Like the drop of the potion of death that intoxicates all the blood in the animal. This is the meaning of what our sages said, in the end it cometh and taketh his soul. In other words, they said that the angel of death comes with a drawn sword and a drop of poison at its tip. The person opens his mouth, he throws the drop inside, and he dies. The sword of the angel of death is the influence of the Sitra Achra, called Helev, because of the separation that grows according to the measure of reception, and the separation destroys him. One is compelled to open one's mouth, since one must receive the abundance for sustenance and persistence from her hands. In the end, the bitter drop at the tip of the sword reaches him, and this completes the separation to the last spark of his breath of life.
Questions? This means that we here were given the complete, simple illustration for why the will to receive that constantly tries to receive is endless, and eventually it dies that way, and it has no way to exist in that way. Even in the righteous, the levels of still vegetative and animate is always drawn to its death. That's it. And it's like we say in life, once a person is born, every day brings him closer to death. Because that's the form of existence. It can't be any other way, because it's always being nourished by actually death instead of life. However, when you acquire the will to bestow, it's a completely separate part from the will to receive. That's why the soul is here. Oh, this is okay, like that. the soul. It's a part that is completely separated and detached from the body. The body lives and dies in its form of existence, and this is our world, this world. And this is the spiritual world. The spiritual world, the upper world. So again, this is to emphasize that we are now transitioning to shifting to a new process that is detached from the previous one. So much so that none of the systems that we had before, whether it's education or economics or society, if it doesn't have to do with the animate degree, because whatever is on the animate degree stays like that. But things that we were nourished from, as if from the human degree, will simply not exist. They will not survive. We won't be able to receive any fulfillment from them. So we will remain in necessities for that animate degree, just like any animal, and like any dog or any other living animal. They get what they need, they take their necessities, and that's it. You understand how much humanity will have to change. And it's not because someone will force them to. They will simply find no comfort not in fashion or movies or media or anything. It will roll into a form of simple animate degree, and all the rest will be found on the speaking degree. This transition is very, very fundamental, very essential, and it didn't happen before.
There is a description of a destructive process of addiction to the will to receive,
which we've been through,
that we're still undergoing.
Yeah.
How can we achieve the starting point in the opposite direction?
Why do you call it addiction?
Because it's attracting ever more.
No. It's more and more attractive until you truly work against the desire, because there you have two balanced things, and on top of them you determine how you behave, what you do. So there's no addiction there.
Yes, but as if there is a process here in which the pleasure is growing, it's pulling me in its direction even though it's destructive. And how can we start a process, the opposite process of any kind of sensation, that the opposite direction is the right direction, and for it to go and grow?
I don't understand. You want to bring the wisdom of Kabbalah in a compelling way to humanity, so all of them will start studying. You want to force them?
No, there has to be a process.
No, the process is happening, and it's happening naturally. How did you come naturally? In the same way others will come naturally. Naturally means that you can't say in advance, I want this and that to happen, and so on. No, there's suddenly a desire that awakens in you, and it determines what's happening. We can never do anything artificially here. It's like I cannot wake up anyone else with my desire. I can speak to them for thousands of hours, but it's like speaking to a cat. That's it. Yes.
We see that a very strong process of addiction is depicted here, and we see that there are plenty of people in our world addicted to plenty of things which are destructive, and they really see that they can't take it any longer, but they continue, like it's described with the potion of death, but they carry on. It's such a broad phenomenon these days, whether it's alcohol or drug abuse or food, different addictions.
This isn't what he's talking about here. If you want to know, this isn't what he's talking about. He's talking about the worker of the Creator, who knows that he is now going to receive instead of in order to bestow, but can't stop himself, and he opens his hand to reach something to receive, and then he dies spiritually. He's not talking about a beast in this world that took another dose of LSD and died. No.
Nevertheless, he is describing or depicting a state of a scratching animal, and he really shows it tangibly. You can see it in this world. You see how people in this world harm themselves.
What is your question? Why do they harm themselves?
Do they have a way out? Do they have a solution? Can we offer something to people?
No. Inside the will to receive, there's a direction to reach its death, because that's where it comes from. That's what it's nourished from. There are many people who would happily die, but they have this light way of, just closing their eyes on everything, and that's it. There are many people in the world, and even people here, who would just, give up on life. And that's nature. It's a natural thing. There's nothing supernatural here.
But all in all, you see that many people can't stand the situation. They want to get out of it.
I don't understand your question. I'm sorry.
It's simply that I see the suffering of many people.
Can you phrase a question with a question mark?
I asked if they have a way out.
No, there's no way out until there's a desire. If there's no desire, there's no way out. Don't you talk to people outside? You see how they don't understand and don't respond and don't anything, because they don't have a desire. Everything comes from the desire. There has to be a desire that grows until one asks, what is the meaning of my life? What is the point in life? And that's not just a question that you ask on the street. It's about the human degree. That's the reason there's a question.
Yesterday we had Unity Day. Tens of thousands of people connected, danced, and had a very good time. Shimon asked an essential question.
When was that?
In the evening, towards 9 p.m.
Oh, I saw most of it.
His question was, what is our next degree of unity? There was something very beautiful and powerful to it. What is the next stage we have to thrive for together?
To tell you the truth, I don't know. It emerges, it unfolds to the extent that we grow. As we grow. I don't know in what form. You're asking about the corporeal form. In what form it will happen, I can't say. I think that just like now we find a need for the stimulator, which is a structure of the connection between us, the means through which we need to be connected through such virtual conventions or unity days. We'll find more and more such things. I hope that finally we'll have one big factory of dissemination that will work much more tightly in an integral fashion all over the world, throughout all our departments and teams, and it'll be like one mechanism that where everything is clear and the same things are determined for everyone there. Everyone knows what's being developed, how, and so on. Life does it. Before life requires it, artificially it won't happen. So I see our Kli developing that way, towards greater unity for sure. How will it manifest? So now it manifests in the way that we plan to do these monthly unity days. Other than that, we have our studies and, the weekly lesson at the end of the week and so on. So still, people have some footholds or points of contact where they're together. But this kind of evening like we had yesterday, a unity day, is a new thing. The convention and the main thing is still building the virtual system where we will be able to be connected and feel each other, not personally. I'll feel you and you'll feel him and he'll feel him and so on. And how will I feel 1,000 people or 1,000,000 people together? It's not like that. In spirituality, it is when I feel the others as a connection. I don't feel any individual in spirituality. I have a problem, I don't remember names. You feel the common force that we create above ourselves. Not everyone is an individual. That's why we need to think about such systems. But we'll find the need for them. For now, I think that we need to develop this stimulator system as much as possible.
I asked about the inner more connection of the next degree, that when we'll all feel the same ups, the same downs.
Ups and downs is what we are preparing for our big convention. It doesn't matter if people will come physically or not. I hope that anyone who can is planning to come. And we have to prepare ourselves both for the ascent and for the descent. Starting from tomorrow, we'll begin to learn more and more material that relates to those ups and downs from Rabash, from the Zohar, and so on. And I hope that it will give us many more discernments. And so we'll see. Rabash wrote a lot about this. I think that we'll have a good preparation, at least if we won't be able to start revealing the ascent through the descent, which already means the middle line and the discovery of the Creator. So at least we'll get to know what is really the ascent and descent, and then next time we'll be able to realize this. Well, but in short, we are advancing according to the process of our progress. And it's not that someone makes a decision, but we're seeing that this thing became revealed. The more we make events, and the deeper we fall later. And so we already have to start learning how to connect the light with the darkness. I don't see, other than connection, unity, arvut, other than that direction of mutual bestowal, there's nothing we need to do. It seems like, we'll have more and more additional means for this here and there, or different expressions of this, but they're all towards unity. That's it. Well, last one, yes.
Chaim Turkia from the Galil Golan group is asking, what is the wall Rav speaks about that we're afraid to stand in front of and break through?
Today I didn't talk about a wall. Did I talk about some wall today? No? I didn't speak about it. No, he woke up from yesterday. Okay. In the meantime, I'm seeing that, yes, what?
According to what you said, Baal Sulam speaks about a person in spirituality. And as he according to the description, there's the angel of death coming with a sword, with a drop of poison. That's the description.
Yes, but he sees the angel of death. You understand what it means? You wish to see it.
But he also acts as a beast, as an animal.
But his beast is not our beast. His beast, of that person who opens up his mouth, he knows and sees that he's going to die, and he knows that he has no choice, that he's doing it because he's forced. He attains that state. You chase pleasures and you don't think about anything. He doesn't want, but enters that serpent and he cannot do anything. That's the difference. Think about it. In the meantime, we'll conclude.
Several announcements. The Last Generation Band is coming to Tel Aviv next Monday. Last Generation Band is coming to Tel Aviv. Excellent music, love and bonding. Everyone's invited. Next Monday, the 6th of September in Tel Aviv. And you can find more information on Kabbalah. We invite you to internet.kbb1.com. Participate in building the questionnaires, fill them out, and give us ideas to build our spiritual environment. You want to be active, or you already are active in dissemination. Bet Kabbalah in the city of Petach Tikva invites you to raise a glass of wine for the New Year's with Rav Leitman. Thursday, the 2nd of September, 6:30 to 9:30, we'll discuss the purpose, the direction of our organization, and discuss our mutual future. Please register in advance on 1-700-509. By this we conclude. Have a great day and a great night.
הכל יהיה מושלם כאיש אחד נרגיש את העולם לא לבד כולנו חלקים את האחד אנחנו משלימים החיים נראים כל כך יפה כשלומדים לחוש את החבר לעצמי אני כל לבד חבריי בינינו האחד נתעלה מעל ההבדלים נגלה איך לאהוב אחרים נתחבר ביחד לעולם נתחבר כי זה חשוב לכולם נתחבר אין כבר שום ברירה נתחבר נחזור להכרה כמו חלום חיינו עד היום שהחלון בינינו נפתח פתאום לעולם לא נוותר את התשוקה נגביר עוד יותר רוצה מעבר לגבול האהבה אני נמשך חושק בהשפעה לעצמי אני כל לבד חבריי בינינו האחד נתעלה מעל ההבדלים נגלה איך לאהוב אחרים נתחבר la la